Welcome back to Red Hawk Media. We're continuing our 2D platform game series, and this is kind of student driven. So the next question that I've been being asked by my students is, how can I swap in my sprites for my character? And I know we had to get organized, and we've been building our layer, and then we had to get the camera following. So I think now's an appropriate time to start looking at that. We've got our character who's set up, and our character has some basic animations right now. We have an idle animation. If we take a look at this, kind of scrolling in a little bit here and move this around so you can kind of see up close and personal what's going on here. We have, of course, our running animation. Okay, we do have a sliding animation, and we have a jumping animation. We have a melee, and we have a knife throw. Okay, so we've got all of that stuff going on right now, but this may not be the sprite that you want to use. So let's go ahead and swap some of these out little by little. And it's going to be a bit of a process, so bear with me, because not every character will match up exactly with this. So we'll have to be a little flexible in how we create this with our given framework that we've got. All right, let's see what we've got here. And the first step is, if you haven't already, go ahead and import your sprites. So I've got my character sprites all located in my sprite folder over here in my project tab, and you can see every one of the sprites for all of the animations. They're all in here. And I also have an enemy set of sprites, which I'm going to use to swap in for my character just to show the process. But whatever you want to use at this point for a character, you want to get those sprites imported into your sprites folder. And then if you haven't organized yet, it'd be a good idea to have a character folder, an objects folder, which will have like all the different stuff that belongs to your background or midground of your tile set. And then of course you've got the tiles themselves for actually building the platforms. So go ahead and drag your sprites into the character folder so that you can use those. Like I said, I'm going to use the enemy ones here just to demonstrate how this is gonna go down. We're going to start off with the basics first. I think we'll begin with the idle. And what you want to do is in your sprites, you want to locate the idle sprites. And there's usually about 8 to 9 of them. So I've got an idle 1 through idle 9. And actually I've got an idle 10 here, so I'm going to go ahead and shift click all of these. Okay, double check if you just brought your sprites in from somewhere else that they're all 2D in the inspector, that they're sprite 2D in UI. And if they're not, make sure you change it to that, and then you would click apply to actually put that on there. Now, after that's all said and done here for your sprites, you're going to create your first animation. So I'm going to take these idle sprites, all selected, and I'm going to drag them into my hierarchy. Now it says that I'm going to create a new animation. I want to name this exactly like the other one. Okay, and it's going to save it into my enemy folder for right now because that's where I'm dragging the sprites from, so I got to remember that, and I click save. Now, it's going to create two things. It's going to create an idle animation, which is this play button looking thing here, and then it's going to actually create a controller. The controller we don't need, so we're going to go ahead and delete that, and delete. Alright, and now here's where we start doing the swapperoo, and we're going to do this one at a time. I'm going to go into my previous animations here for my player. So all I'm doing, and let me expand this so we can kind of see everything that's happening here within this area, and stretch this out so we can read everything. Alright, so I'm going into my animations. I'm going into my player animations. Right now for my player, I have an idle animation. So I'm going to come in, select that, and I'm going to delete that out of there. So now delete, and good. Alright, so if I were to go to play right now, okay, and it's still listing that I've got an idle animation because there's one other place that this idle animation is saved. So I would have to swap that out too. But let's start the process here. I'm going to go back to where my other idle animation is saved. So I'm going to go to my enemy folder, and I can see my idle animation is there. And I'm going to drag that into my player animations. Okay. Now, second step of all this, if I go and click play right now, I'm probably still not going to see Yeah, I'm still not seeing any animation. In fact, there's no animation taking place right now at all, except for the idle crack, which is, after they've been stagnant for a while for a certain amount of time, and then they slip into this other animation that breaks the idle. It just gives a little bit more variety. Some people have one idle crack or two idle cracks. We'll talk about that in a bit. Anyway, let's go ahead and pause this, and we're going to go back and change out the other location for the animation. So let's go to the Animator. Now you may not see this tab on your workspace here. So if you're not, go up to Window and you would check Animator right here, and that'll bring up the tab for you. And you may have to drag it into the location where I've got mine. It's up to you wherever that's going to be here. So with the Animation tab selected, and I've got two layers, a ground layer and an air layer. We're going to go ahead and click on Idle States. Now these are all the things that you can do from idling, or that happen when you're on the ground in the idle state. Here's the one that we're interested in, which is just idle. Now, you'll notice up here that there's no motion that's listed right now. There's no idle motion. This is where I want to drag my new animation in. So I'm going to go to my player animations. I just dragged that new idle animation of the robot in here, and I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to drag it right up into the motion here. Drop that in there. Now, all the previous setups are still on here. Everything is exactly the same. And I want to go ahead and test this out. So let's go back to our scene. Let's go ahead and click play. And right away you can see, as soon as it slips into the idle animation, I've got my character here. Now, yep. But as soon as I start running, as soon as the idle animation is going to crack here and go into the second set, it switches over. So you can see what we've got going on here. All of these have to be changed individually. So continuing the process, let's go to run next. That's probably the next easiest. I'm going to go ahead and delete run out of here. So we're going to delete run and delete. And now I'm going to go over to my enemy folder. And of course, you're going to your Sprite folder. And this is where you're going to be. I'm sorry, I'm going to enemy down here in my sprites area. So you're going to the running animation of your character that you want to put in here. So I'm using the robot here, and we look for the running animation. And I go down and select all of those. And now I'm going to drag them in just like before to the hierarchy. Call this run, exactly the same as the other one, and save. Delete the controller, and delete. And now right from here I can take run into my animations. I can take it right into my player animations. Boom. Now, just like before, if I click on my player, or go to my animator here, and I go to the ground layer, and I go to the ground layer action states, double click on that, I'm going to start to see the other things that my character can do. So here's run, we'll select that, and again the motion is none because we deleted that out of there. So I'm going to go down to my player animations, and I'm going to drag that new run that I switched out into there. And now we should be set. Let's go back to our scene tab, push play, and now I've got two things going on. He will idle, and now he runs. Awesome. Okay, looking good so far. We're going to tackle the melee next, so I believe that's listed under attack. Let's check our animations just to make sure. We can go to animations folder, go to player, and see how this is labeled in here. Yeah, it's called attack. It's not called melee. So we're going to want to do the same exact thing here. We're going to go in and we're going to delete attack out of here. Boom, take that out. And now go over to your sprites that you're going to supplement in. I'm going to go to my enemy here. And now I'm going to go down. It's called melee in the sprites, so let's make sure we're consistent with this. Melee 1 through 8. Here we go. Alright, and again, drag them into the hierarchy. Attack. We got to name it exactly what it was before, and then we click save. And again, we're going to delete the controller, delete, and then where's my animation here? It's in here alphabetically, and now I take the animation into the animations folder, into the player folder. And we've got that set up, so now that's replaced, but we got to go to our animator, and we're still in all of the ground layer animations, and you'll see that attack is one of them. And we're going to take that new animation from the player that we put in there and drag that in there. Now everything seems to go pretty smoothly thus far. I want to show you one more animation though before we get going, because this is the one that's going to be interesting. Oh, shift, yeah, there we go. And we've got our melee. Hey, look at that. Pretty snazzy. Okay, excellent. So far so good. Now, the tricky one. We've got the jumping. The jumping is the most interesting one because it's actually broken up into two parts. Okay, you have a takeoff in your animations, and you have a landing in your animations. And that's where we want to break these up a little bit so that when our character is taking off, it's the first part of the jumping motion, and then when they are landing, it's the second part of it. We'll go into the sprites. We'll go to the ones that we're putting in here. And I'm going to go down to jump, because that's what the sprite's called here. And I've got 1 through 10, it looks like. So we're going to take the first 5 only. So I'm going to click back to 1, just shift click to 5. This is going to be my takeoff here. So these first 5 animations are going to happen when he takes off, and then he's going to kind of hang in the air, and then when he starts to fall, he's going to go through the second set, which will be the landing. And I'm sorry this is in detail here, but this was one of the harder parts to actually set up originally with the character. So we're going to drag these up here, and we're going to call these takeoff. Okay, save. And again, we're going to go ahead and get rid of the controller, and delete, and delete, and let's see here, take off. Where's that animation? There we go. Now we've got that new one here. We go back to the player animations, and I have not yet deleted out here. I want to double check that it's the same name conventions here, and delete that, delete, and let's take our new one and drop it in there, and into our animations player folder. And now that's all set. Now let's go over to the animator and make sure we click on player so we can see what's going on here. In the ground layer, in the action states, okay, you'll notice that we're not going to see anything in here. Okay, we've got the run, attack, slide, throw, but there's nothing in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch up to the air layer, and you're going to see all the jumping stuff going on here. So the takeoff is the first one that we're interested in, and again, there's no motion in there. So let's go to our new animations for the player, and then we're going to take takeoff and drag that in there. And now we're going to do the same thing for landing. We're going to delete the old one out of here. There we go, and delete, and let's go back to where you're going to get your sprites from. And now we're going to grab our second set of jumping sprites. So starting with number 6 through 10, drag that up there. Alright, this new one is called landing. Okay, and we can actually see that up in the animator here. And save. And now we are going to delete that landing one out of there, and delete. Okay, and let's go to our animations. Oh, let's go back. I already deleted it out of there. So back to enemy and landing. Drag that into our animations. Okay, now we're ready for the animator. Let's click on the player and air layer and landing. And there it is. Now let's get to my animations and drag that in there. And I believe at this point we should be good to go. The land behavior script is still in there, which was originally part of our import. Let's go ahead and test it out here. Let's go back to the scene and play. And now we're idling. we're running, we're attacking, and we're jumping. Okay, so we've got this jumping animation, but there's this weird kind of looping kind of, I don't know. Luck of the Irish, like, look at me, laddie, I can jump. I'm clicking my heels. I'm not sure what this is, but we want to get rid of that. It looks a little goofy. You may like it, you can keep it, but we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. Kind of a simple fix with all of it. We've got the first 5 sprites for our takeoff, and then we've got the second 5 sprites for our landing, but they're kind of being looped together here. So we're going to fix that. Let's pause it. All right, push play here. And now I'm going to switch up again to my animator at this point. And I'm going to go to the takeoff. Okay, again, we're on the air layer, and I'm clicking on takeoff. And I'll notice in here there's a speed factor, so I can slow this down. But the one that I think is causing the problem, I'm going to double click on this, is that it's looping. So we're going to check off the loop time. Let's do the same in the landing here. Again, we've got the speed factor, so if we want to slow that down, we can. We know where that's at. Double click on it, and let's check off the loop time. And let's go ahead and test that out to see what's happening here. There we go. All right, so now we've got that happening. Now, if you think the animation is happening too quickly or too slowly, you could go back into that time, but now it's starting to look like an actual platformer the way you would want them to. Okay, and it's not slipping back into the idle animation, so that's a good thing. All right, this is probably a great place to wrap this up. Pretty much the same process is going to be continued with the rest of the animations. And if you look in there, I mean, we've swapped out idle, attack, we've done the landing, we've done the takeoff, we've done the run. Now you can go ahead and you can swap out sliding and jump attack and jump throw. You can you can swap out the rest of these. Now, idle crack I'll be talking about here in the next one. This was a unique animation that I had to create myself, so I'll kind of show you that process hopefully in the next tutorial here. Anyways, thanks for joining us for another episode of Red Hawk Media. Bye.